You made it.
We'll be live in 11, 10, 9, 8, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 2, 1, 5, 6. Yes.
We are live.
It's been a while. It's been more than a week, right?
Yes.
Welcome everyone to the Music is Therapy show. Oh, I even have it live on my phone over here. I gotta turn that down. Thank you everyone for coming back to Music Therapy Labs channel. And my friends Brent, Octopus Ears, as you see there, and Janice Roberta Lala from La La Land. You know a little something about psilocybins, right? Probably.
Yeah, kind of.
I would guess. We'll talk about that, but let's go ahead and go into the particulars. So this show is a little bit of an extension of what we got into previously, discussing psychedelics in therapy being used today for everything from depression to people that have addictions of all kinds, everything from alcoholism to heroin and other kinds of addictions.
And
I think
PTSD.
because it's PTSD. A lot of how would you put it? A lot of diseases. So they're not a disease like, you hear the word disease, you think, oh, it's like cancer or something. But I'm using the word a little differently. And part of, I think, what we should always be doing in culture and society and in every aspect of life is questioning and learning about not just how our language is used, right? There's so many chasms of like information, right? It can get mind bending, almost on a psychedelic level when it comes to trying to understand what's real and good information and what's not. And there's so much information out there, right? And that's part of what I started to do my channel about when it came to this particular show, the Music is Therapy show, because I've always had an interest in helping people, and music is one of the things I've always wanted to do to help people or to connect with people. And the psilocybin side of things has a lot to do with Brent. That's going to distract. We hear it.
Oh, you can? Really?
Yeah, it's throwing me off anyway. Sorry. Just so you know. When I hear music in the background and it just throws me off. Sorry.
No, I didn't expect you to be able to hear it. I can barely hear it.
Yeah.
I can't hear it.
It came through to me. Sorry. Anyway, but the point is that, see, I got thrown off. Lost my train of thought. That there's so much information out there, right? About everything there is to know, right? And when I use a word like disease differently than how it's commonly used, disease, I'm trying to make a point that there are a lot of different forms of dis-ease. And that's the heart of where that word is coming from. It's something that takes us out of our normal way of feeling good, normal, right? And we all have a definition of what normal is. Everyone's normal might be different, right? Garguts might have a different normal, right? Music saves, right? William De Silva might have a different normal, right? Janice might have a different definition for normal. Charles as well, right? Charles, what's up? We're saying hi to everyone as we're doing this. Blackjack guitar might have a different definition of what a disease is or normal, right? Someone's disease might be another one's, good, happy, fun time. Who knows, right, Paul? But the bottom line is that I'm using that word here for Matt Stewart and everyone else who's wanting to jump in and listen to this. There's 15 people here. Thank you, 15 people so far. Thank you for coming back to the show. It's been a while since I've been able to actually talk. Jeff T, acknowledging my coming back to the world here. Dave Chase, what's up, Dave Chase? I remember that name. I used to know a guy named Chris Chase and his brother, Andrew Chase, in Colorado.
There's also a band called Chase way back. It was jazz rock band. It was really good.
Oh, cool. I'll have to look into that, Janice. You always have such
really good
stuff to suggest. I mean, I tried. There's so much stuff to follow, and the one thing I think we're learning about the internet is that we're trying to find a space for it in our world, right? In our
brains.
Yeah, in our personal worlds, right? In our brains and in our lives and everything, and then it can be daunting, you know. I
I
think
mean,
the
look at me.
yeah,
What am
yeah,
I doing here?
look at you. And young people, I think, are who are born more into this. You know, Brent might be one of those. I'm not sure. Maybe a little bit too old for being really considered part of that technocrat kind of part of the world where they're grown almost. They're already almost cyborgs because they're practically connected to their phones and technology in a way that you can't disconnect them from it. You know.
I'm just getting
Um,
into the cyborg stuff.
there you go. I was telling my wife last night about this, but we'll go on and we'll go into that on another show because that's another really fascinating side
Yes,
of
it
the world.
is definitely.
Today we're going to talk about shrooms, right? There's like there got to be a good sign for that sound. No, I don't know. That kind of goes.
That is a good sign, a good synth
Good sound.
sound,
There you go. And then this can happen to you when you're on psilocybins too.
Johnny.
A lot of bad things can happen.
Johnny
Also-
Bean's in the house.
Johnny Bean in the house. I sent him a link too if you want to jump in, dude, for a minute, but you don't have to if you don't want to. But yeah, everyone's saying hi to each other. Right on, everybody. Yeah, there are power in words and how you use them words, right? Oops, where did that go?
Yep.
Jump.
Choose your words wisely. They matter.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why I was trying to define how I'm using the word disease because I'm not using it like the word like it's like a cancer and a disease, you know. But that word is originating from the idea of a disease of what is like normality in your life, right? And a lot of us want to feel good, and we give these terms like normal to that feeling of like, hey, everything's all good with the world. I feel all right. I feel all right. Da, na, 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 na. Anyway, so
Feeling
music.
all right.
Yeah, right. So music and psychedelics.
All
We're talking about
right
that.
now.
Yeah, there you
Baby,
go.
Look at
all
how many all rights are there
Yeah, right.
in songs?
Bloody well right. So that's the thing about music. Johnny's even laughing. That's what's great about music is that it's one of those things that connects us to each other and drops our walls or facades to some degree, you know. Because when you're let's say you're out at a concert or at a show or something, and everyone there is kind of participating in that connection with the music, and the music connects each other, and they don't see each other as strangers. They see each other as, hey, you know, you're part of the family here of this musical thing, and so you can't be all that bad. You know, all of a sudden barriers drop, and that's the interesting thing about specifically how music works in therapy with things like psilocybins. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, because last time we got a little off the rails with some of the people in the chat getting a little goofy about psychedelics, and I'm not talking about psychedelics as a necessarily like the whole 60s era thinking of, you know, tune in, tune out, and, you know, space out or
Drop
whatever.
out.
Drop
Tune
out
in.
And explode.
How'd it go?
Tune
Darcy?
in. Tune in. Oh no! See, I forgot now.
See, tune in, tune out, drop out. So, I don't know.
Something like that.
Yeah, the point.
Maybe I've done too many in my life to really remember everything.
Well, you know,
Even some prescription drugs
in the
can do
brain.
it to you.
It's hard to pick something right out of the brain that's amongst so many other thoughts and things, right? So that's part of it. But yeah, you know, that 60s era, in 50s, you know, beginning to explore outside of let's say the military that was exploring it, and the CIA and all these other institutions were exploring, you know, what are the efficacies or uses of these drugs? Should we keep them on this banned list, and why? And, you know, a lot of these things got banned just like alcohol was banned, and that's where the whole drug wars all came out of, was started from that. And the problem that people had back in the day when there was so much alcoholism, rampant alcoholism, was dealing with, believe it or not, this is all true, look it up, guys. I should put links about this stuff, but that was because of at the beginnings of the industrial age, people were put into work situations, living situations that were so different and stressing compared to what previously was a pastoral way of life, right? You had a home on a farm on a piece of land. You grew your land, your food. You traded with some other people, some meats and foods and this and that. And it was more that kind of a civilization to an industrial age where people were working on the clock at a factory and in close quarters, under high levels of stress, working for a lot of hours for little, because they were owned by the company store kind of thing that was going on, right? And what would they do? They would have to de-stress somehow. And so what were the available things to de-stress with? Well, they didn't have a lot of time. They didn't want to just go right to bed, and they want to at least commiserate and connect with the fellow man out there. So they went to the bar and they drank, and there were, of course, opium dens and all these other kind of things going on back then. But they weren't connecting with each other in a way using those drugs and stuff that was helping society and helping each other. As we all know, it made them feel good at the moment, but it had a lot of other problems, and that's why there was this big push for prohibition of drugs of all kinds, anything that would take away a person's sensibility and senses and control. They lacked control, and we can still see the effects of alcohol on society, how devastating it can be if you can't just have one or two drinks and relax, and you fall into this addiction thing. And that happens with a lot of other drugs. So what we're talking about is not that recreational use. What we're talking about here, and we can talk about that too. That could be another show. But what we're talking about here is how psilocybins are now being used in therapy, and how important music is in that part of therapy. Because believe it or not, without the connection and not having music, you're not going to have as good of a session. And this is something that's being proven in science. And I posted just 2 this time because I don't want to overwhelm you guys again with too much information, which I do to myself sometimes. But I don't think it's too much, but it's a lot of information. I posted 2 videos off of YouTube that are really good, that both go into the science, like Andrew Huberman's podcast. Guy's a scientist and professor and teaches about neurobiology, as well as the ocular side of things. Like our vision is one of our most, attuned senses that we rely on the most, and he's a specialist in that as well at Stanford University here in California, the Bay Area. And the other one is more kind of a news organization that went into kind of the history and understanding how now psilocybins are being used in therapy, and more of the spiritual, not the science side, but more the spiritual side of things, if you want to call it spiritual, that ethereal, not so easy to grasp, not so concrete, but the other side, right? We've got the concrete, and then we've got the not so concrete, or what's the right word I'm trying to think of? Brent or Janice, help me. I can't think of it right now. Someone will come up with it. Yeah, ketamine is another good example, Dave. Thank you very much. So G. Butchnoff is obviously here because Octopus here said hi to him. Booster Black, what's up, dude? Yeah, micro shrooming, 3 months quit, 48 years, nicotine habit in 95 days. Bingo, right? Yeah. That's the thing, is that if done right, and did they use music in your sessions, Booster Black? That would be really cool to know. From what I understand, to set up, because I haven't been in one of these sessions myself outside of like having done this stuff in the past, for personal, I don't know what you would call it. Why, when I was young and I got into this stuff a little bit, at that time I was a little scared of it, and I was a little, oh, this is weird. But you're with friends, you're listening to music like Pink Floyd or whatever, right? And you're trying this stuff out, and it was quite a cool experience, I gotta say. But I didn't do it a bunch of times because I thought, okay, I experienced this and move on, right? It wasn't something I thought I am music. No, I mean, like when you were doing the micro shrooms, 3 months of microdosing, and after 48 years in a nicotine habit, you were able to break it, right? In 95 days, basically, right? So what you're saying here is that particular, microdosing and mushrooms helped you break a really deadly habit, right? Which can be really bad. Um, Bottom line is, were you doing this on your own, or do you have a therapist working with you? And what were the sessions like? Did they have music involved in setting up the session? Because from what I understand, that is almost a necessity. And that's really interesting, because then it goes to tell you that, okay, the shrooms are doing part of it, music is doing another part of it, right? And we've got a pretty, what would you call it, like our audience here, we're preaching to the choir, because everyone here probably understands how important music is to connection. I think the mushroom side of things and psilocybins is helping you connect to yourself and your connection to the world and how you perceive and see the world. What do you guys think? I'll stop talking for a minute and tell me what your thoughts are on that. Brent.
Well, for me, I mean, my first thing that comes to mind is I put it in the chat is Paul Stamets. He's a mycologist and obviously a mushroom researcher who's dedicated his life to mushroom research. He saved the bees when the bees were in trouble about 10 years ago when they're getting the deformed wing virus, and everyone was panicking. He's the one that stepped up and solved that problem.
Wow.
And he's done more for understanding mushrooms than just about anybody. And he has the largest collection of old growth forest mushrooms in the world.
Wow.
And he's using those to study to try to find hidden strains of antibacterial, antifungal
very cool. I'm looking him up right now so I can put it into the description.
He's done 3 interviews on Joe Rogan. They're all very, very good, all very informative.
There's a TED Talk that he did too. Maybe I'll do that.
Yeah, he did TED Talks. He's
only 11 minutes long.
He's very passionate about what he does, and he knows his stuff better than anybody. And he has as much experience with these mushrooms as just about anybody too.
Very cool.
So it doesn't come from a place of just research. He's very involved on a personal level too.
Right. Now, did you learn anything about him and this whole experience using mushrooms as therapy or whatnot, and music?
And music, it not necessarily with music with him, but he does use it with other things, and that's kind of, I think, part of the connection is to not just do it by itself, but to connect it with an event or connect it with something you're doing. Like what he would do is he would take it and go on hikes and stuff like that, and allow nature to be part of his, what was interacting with him.
Yeah.
And he would also he's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, and he would also do jiu-jitsu and things like that, things that require mental strain, and those are the 2 examples I could think of off the top of my head he would do.
Very cool. Yeah, I do find myself much more connected to myself and the world and people that I'm with, universe, if you want to go that far, right? When I'm out in nature, rather than, like, for example, sitting here, even though I feel, I'm getting connected with you guys here, talking about this, music is one of those things that really kind of seems to really get me connected with others, right? I mean, some of my best friends are people I've connected with through music, like you and I, right? Yeah. And that has something to do with, how I think music is this magical kind of thing. It's like a connected thing, but it's interesting that it doesn't have to involve, the use of psilocybins and things like this. Doesn't have to involve music, maybe, like what you're saying here. So that's a different perspective on it. What I was getting at with the title and kind of the whole point about music being connected with this show, with things like the psilocybin, being used as therapy, is how important it is during therapy sessions that they set up the environment, and a big part of the environment is music. And like when I was telling you guys about my ayahuasca experience,
if you're gonna give someone mushrooms in a doctor's office, they're gonna have a bad trip. Like like in just a sterile white environment, it's gonna.
That might say something about a doctor's office in the first place, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I was, given a batch when I was living in California, and I was going to be doing it the next night, and so the guy that gave it to me, he put a note on my window, because that's, you see the window in the very beginning before you get to my door. And he says, "Take magic mushrooms on an empty stomach." So
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
that's what happened. Maybe somebody
Yeah.
took the
Garguts.
magic mushrooms on a full stomach. So maybe that's why the upset stomach happened.
Yeah, it's very important. As a matter of fact, before my wife and I, we went into the jungles in Amazon and we got connected with this shaman, very reputable person. I won't go into who she is or where they are, but it's a woman and her husband actually, and they were like from France and living in the Amazon jungle, and they were doing this stuff for decades already. And we went with some other like people that were. There was only three. There was four of us total, plus the two shamans. So it wasn't like some big group thing where it was all about money and has you paying thousands of dollars. It was relatively inexpensive, and
Yeah.
they were wonderful hosts and hostesses. They lived basically in a beautiful jungle garden area,
I'm
and
sorry. I'm thinking about Sam
oh,
who left a
and
note.
oh, that's cool.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And the bottom line is that our ayahuasca experience, music was such an integral part of that experience, especially for my wife and even the other young woman who was there, who was like this college educated person that wanted to expand her mind and connection with the universe and all. And that's what she went there for, her intention. The other person we were there was somebody involved in a Amazon jungle forest conservation organization. Her and her sister, really wonderful organization called Arbio, Arbio, in the Amazon. Actually, they won. Her sister Tatiana won the Jane Goodall Award for whatever it is. I forget exactly. The first woman in the world and ever in South America altogether. And she actually was presented this whatever it was by Jane Goodall herself, which is pretty amazing, right? So we were actually the first group of people to go onto their land piece that was a piece of land given to them to watch over by the government of Peru. And because there's too much forest out there for the government to watch over, so they're trying to find a way to not just scientifically study and investigate all the various species of animal, insect, plant life, there is out there, but also try to save it, from all the big money people and companies, and even sometimes just people living out there in the jungle wanting to farm the land rather than just live in the jungle. They want to farm it so they can make a better life for themselves. And there's a lot of competition, if you want to call it that. That's probably the softest word. But a lot of these groups don't always all get along because one wants to conserve the jungle, the other wants to use the land to feed their children and make money so they can flourish. So there's a lot of competing, I guess, people out there. It can be very challenging. Yeah, but it's pretty badass, right, Gargas? And Tatiana is pretty badass. I got to tell you, man. When we were canoeing with the tat, they call it the tuk tuk or the tat or something like that. I think they call it the tuk tuk. It's the boat that has a motor on the back of it that goes like that, right? And it's off one of these like big poles, like you see in like that James Bond movie, Man with the Golden Gun, where they have this big stick, and they're using that to because the propeller's way out there, and it's like shallow, because the river gets shallow in different parts. And there was some parts where we hit some berms where she actually got out of the canoe, and there's like 12 of us in there, plus all kinds of stuff in there, I don't know how many 1,000 pounds of stuff in there, and she's like pushing the boat, the little canoe kind of thing like this to try to get it off the berm. And I'm like, oh God, I hope her leg doesn't get caught up under there or something. But she was something else. She was a force of nature herself. And so it was her sister Rocio who we joined at this ayahuasca experience, and I had a really, really cool experience with it. My wife had the went through death and life and the crazy kind of you know, like you see on TV or you see in
Really?
documentaries. Oh yeah, she had that kind of way more psychedelic kind of like spiraling through thing, and then she was in this like place of nothing, looking kind of not looking down, but she just knew that she was dead. Am I dead? And I'm dead now. And that,
Jeez.
they talk about how like in that experience you really learn a lot more about life, because you learn, God, how do you put it? You don't know how you don't know how to live until you've died. Maybe that's like the craziest psychedelic kind of, I don't know, craziest way of putting it, but
And
you
I've
don't
heard
know how to live
ayahuasca
until
is
you've
not
died.
exactly. I've heard ayahuasca is not exactly a pleasurable experience. It's more. It's transformative, but it's not exactly like a good.
It's not supposed to
It's not
be,
fun.
it's not supposed to be a fun thing. It's a introspective and eye-opening experience to what the universe has out there for you
Hmm.
at the very, you know, I can't even define it like in just one sentence. But the bottom line is that she got the full-on experience, whereas I had a much milder experience, and it was pretty cool too. But it was kind
So
of, for me, it was more enlightening. And Rocio too, when she and I were talking, maybe it's because we're already coming to it from a different perspective and experience in life. And her experience was similar to mine. We're like, yeah, you know, I had this one little kind of thing that happened, but there was not all this stuff, you know, going on, because maybe we don't need that. Maybe we've already gotten beyond that. And it's just like these shamans who were there, they're doing it too. And they have to connect with the people there through the experience while it's happening. So it's hard to explain, but it's almost like you all go into this one same kind of space together, but you're not in each other's heads, you're not in each other's space, but somehow you are connected with each other through this, you know, this this chemical that's opening your mind to how everything is connected. That's bottom line to me, was what it was. But hey, Rody, what's up, Rody?
what's up,
Everyone's
Brody?
saying hi to
So
each
one thing I wanted to say was
other. Yeah,
Janice and some other people were complaining
shamans.
about mushrooms and them possibly affecting your stomach, making your stomach not feel good.
Hmm.
Remember, mushrooms are grown in cow shit. Psilocybin is grown in cow shit, so you do have to make sure your mushrooms are clean. That does make a big difference.
That's a
And
good point.
Yeah, and getting a good source of them, you know, and keep in mind that, you know, where are you getting these mushrooms, who collected them, and the bottom line is you're in a sense poisoning yourself a little bit. I mean, the ayahuasca experience, you have to throw it up, because to actually have this chemical work with your system, your biome, your stomach, the way that it absorbs stuff normally wouldn't absorb this, and it would just pass through you. But the two different plants that there's a root and a leaf that they boil together, right? um, until you actually throw it up, it doesn't have the effect on you, because it's in that process of how your like gut deals with it and how it absorbs things. It breaks down. It allows for it to manifest. Okay, if you want to use these kind of big hippie words, as some might say, if you it won't manifest until it's broken down in your gut. Um, and usually your gut won't break it down; it just passes it through, because there are protections that our body, you know, create to stop these things from, you know, affecting us. Because why? Well, we evolved on this planet so that we can live without being, you know, totally wasted all the time. If we ate a few wrong mushrooms, you know, either we're going to die from it, or it's going to fortify us because it's some vitamin or mineral or food that's good, or it's going to make us trip out. And you can't function in the world with tigers and panthers and lions and snakes around you and whatnot if you're tripping. So your body is going to create some kind of, just like white blood cells, that, you know, whatever, you have an immune system that's going to stop things from messing with you so you can survive, right? And so what we have done in modern science is found out a way to break down uh, these things into their particular parts and use them. And so nowadays, you know, if you're going to get some mushrooms, you want to get them from a source that's reliable. That's kind of what you're saying, Brett, basically, right? Janice is techno.
It is extremely it's extremely important. It's like with anything, just knowing where it came from and who handled it and all that kind of stuff. It is important. And that's the benefit of legalizing things and making it available for people, is we can do it the right way, you know.
Right. And I remember when I first took shrooms as a teenager, it did make me kind of feel queasy, my stomach. Yeah, and that might have been because right before then, we did go to Burger King and get some of them chicken sandwiches. That back then, that was the thing: chicken sandwiches, chocolate shake, and onion rings. I don't know why, but that was the thing. It was 1981 or something like that, 82 the most. Yeah.
Yeah, my grandma grew up in Washington State, and she would pick truffle mushrooms and all that kind of stuff all the time, and they'd eat gourmet up there.
Nice. Well, you've been working for a little while anyway at a cheese place, right? Did they have cheese plates with mushrooms and stuff too?
They
Not like psychedelic ones, but
no, we did serve some truffle at one point.
And basically, mushrooms are what? It's a fungi, right? Or fungi.
Yeah, it's just a form of fungus.
It's a fungus. Fungi.
Fungi.
Yeah. And if you didn't know this, everyone out there, y'all, fungi are probably the species that we're almost connected to in the world.
Yeah, that's where all animals
everything from plants and animals and fish and everything.
Every animal on this planet, every animal on this planet evolved from mushrooms, from fungus.
Which goes to tell you, you know, how deep they are part of our connected.
Want me to tell you
why we connect to them?
I'm going to tell you guys a fun fact that's going to blow your guys' mind. 1/3 of the soil of the earth is made of mushrooms.
Yeah.
1/3 of the soil. If you go anywhere, 1/3 of the complex of the soil is made of mushrooms. That's how old mushrooms are and how important they are to our ecosystem.
They've even making coffee now out of mushrooms. Cassava, whatever that is.
My sweetie has some outside right now. She's been
mud water.
A little of that. Yeah. Yeah, that's why we're connected to it. Like, exactly. Yeah. And it's interesting on how
later,
the
Charles.
Other part of Charles. Later, man. Is he taking off?
Yeah, he says he's gonna watch the rest of the replay later.
Right on, man. I gotta find out what happened with did they still have their Sunday show? Because I was so busy right before this one.
Yeah, they did. They did this morning, but it's just Charles with the guests.
Oh, that's cool.
Seth only does it on Wednesdays.
Yeah, I know his work situation and stuff. Yeah.
But they had Ferd Burfel on this morning. I want to watch that.
Oh, right on. Right on. Yeah, that's true. They want to keep us in the dark, right? I have to use the cheesy laugh machine for that, because and funny. Johnny's in Coffee Town. Ask if they have a mushroom coffee, Johnny. See if they have some kind of special mushroom coffee. But just so you guys know, personally, I don't do like any of these.
Look at our brains. Our brains look like mushrooms.
Therapies, yeah, right. Yeah, that's a really interesting thing, right? The consistency of it might even be very similar. I don't think so, but anyway. But yeah, where was I getting at? I don't do a lot of these things myself, so just so you know, I haven't taken part in any of these therapies at all. So I'm talking about it here because I find it fascinating, and I want to spread, the word to others and try to help inform people with whatever I've gained knowledge on, because I think that's the best part of communicating, with each other, information and spreading knowledge about things that could be helpful. And partially because I'm a rebel that really doesn't like how government tries to control it all and has made all this stuff illegal. And we see obvious, forms of the use of this stuff being very beneficial. And it does not make any sense to me that just because some uninformed or ill-informed people of the past with their attitudes are controlling our present and future through laws that don't make any sense. And I think the hardest part overcoming all this is people in society that fear any of these things. And when I say fear, I mean like they won't open up their minds to not just trust themselves or others, but allow others to use some of these things as a form of medical help or psychological or otherwise therapy and help, especially when it's been proven. You've got veterans and all kinds of people dying, literally dying, that need help, and it's been proven that these kinds of therapies help them. And how you don't allow that help to get to them, to me, is a crime in my mind, and it upsets me. And that's why I want to like get that out, the information out there, to get more people informed about how this stuff is a very good form of therapy. And you have to have the right conditions. You have to have the right people doing it. It's not just, hey, here's a bag of mushrooms. Good luck, kid. You'll feel better. Trust me. No, that's not what I'm saying. And we're having to find more and more ways to, the efficacy of it. How is it effective? How can we get this working, and learn about it? If we illegalize it and criminalize it, we can't learn about it. We can't spread the knowledge of and then find ways of using it as a form of therapy. It's like let's make the internet illegal, because it's bad. Social stuff is bad. Let's just make it illegal, right? It's bad for our kids. So let's illegalize it for the world, because look at all the problems social media is making on the world. Let's just illegalize it all. That's kind of like what the mentality is like. To me, it's just idiotic. Yeah, let's not get into politics, guys. But I'm just saying that the political side of it is obviously, people who want to control these things, and there's got to be some rationality. People have to,
That's why I
people
like
have
Paul
to,
Stamets so much. He's putting out the
right?
research. He's
There
doing
you
the
go.
footwork for us to make everything make sense, to be like, for putting it on in doctor terms, like, hey, this is
Right.
a powerful medicine.
Science.
This is not a trip, this is not mushroom. This is not shroom fest. This
Yeah,
is,
we're not
this is
talking about
serious.
411 and let's all kumbaya out on the grass and forget about our job today and nobody works and nobody does anything. It's not about like that's why I brought up the whole thing with Janice about the tune in, tune out thing. I get what he was trying to say back then, and what he was trying to elicit to society about where we're at in society and what we need to kind of tune out of that. I think it was trying to say tune out of the control, tune out of the military industrial complex, tune out of the bad things and tune into the good things, is I think what he was really trying to say. But that was so early on, that and a different perspective that we have now, right? That I think we need to start to look at these things again and understand how our government and how even our society and certain people in power will use these things as a political football, right?
Lad's
Sorry,
dying.
still
You all right?
coughing once in a while.
Yeah.
Well, I still have a cough when I'm talking a lot. So
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
trying to drink as much as I can as I'm talking. But you know what I mean, right? And in politics, one thing I always talk about with politics, I try to be clear about politics. All right, politics and politicians are a tool of it. Government is a tool, right? It is a tool we use to govern ourselves. And when I say ourselves, I mean if we're living in a republic or a democracy of sorts, we have the hope through our constitution that we have rights that protect us, that allow us to govern ourselves, right? But we're realizing that it's very complex and tricky, just like business and competition of business, right, out there. People are always going to look for a loophole and a way to get one leg up ahead of the other guy. This competitive nature of humanity that wants to best someone else. And I have a different nature. I have a nature that's more about collaboration. And that's what I love about science. And that's what I think science can bring to this, particular, topic is is collaborating and sharing information and finding
Why is my face
proofs.
all red?
I don't know. What happened? Did you have a strawberry?
Are you allergic to something?
Yeah. Is somebody saying something that's got you going?
Well, I guess maybe I'm blushing a little bit.
I see. But you know what I mean? I mean, it's a tool, and right now I think that tool is in the hands of a lot fewer people than it used to be. I think that the middle class of America is shrunken in its power, and what I mean by power, I mean its holdings of assets that gives them some level of power. And because of that, now we have a major kind of tipping point going on here between the haves and have-nots, right? The have-nots. And because of that, there's a lot of upset people, and they're all trying to figure out, you know, a way out of this bad situation that they feel we're in. And they're looking to leaders, and then you're finding people rising to power in politics and whatnot, because that's where leaders often go, you know, or they find other ways to lead, like this guy that Brent's talking about, right? Paul Stamets, who's trying to lead people to understand some things from a different perspective, using, you know, psilocybins as a way of connecting and therapy for people, right? And so what I'm trying to say here is I'm not necessarily promoting, hey, everyone, let's grab a bag of mushrooms. You know, that's not what I'm doing here. What I'm trying to do here is get some information out there and talk about these forms of music and therapy. That's what the show's about. And how music and forms of therapy like psilocybin therapy or using mushrooms, you know, these types of therapies are connected with music. And we got quite a bit off the music side of it. But the music side of it, from what I found in my own experience, and also from what I've read and have been studying about this, is that it's really important that your environment is a good environment for a good, like they used to say, trip, right? When you're going on this psilocybin kind of like experience, because it takes you outside of your normal perception of reality, kind of like dreams in your dream states, right? Have you guys ever had dreams that were similar to a psychedelic experience? You know?
Not exactly. My dreams are high octane. My dreams are crazy.
Yeah. So what are your dreams? Do you want to talk a little bit about your dreams or not? You don't have to.
Dude, I have dreams about going to different planets. I have dreams
Yeah.
of like there's different I have this reoccurring dream that there's a society on Mars, and I keep traveling back and forth between here and Mars, and somehow I'm causing a conflict because people are mad that I'm doing this, and it's like, and in the dream I have like superpowers and shit. It's so stupid, dude. It's so off
No,
the
that's
wall.
cool. I don't think that's stupid at all. I think that's amazing, actually, because there's
It's
a lot of talk in the media, and
and
if
I
you
wake
you
up and
know,
I'm like, oh shit, okay, here I am.
are you a fan of or not of Elon and his idea of the Mars? You know, this whole Mars thing. Look at Martian Murray's got a lot to say about Mars.
I mean, I think we should terraform Mars. I don't think there's a reason we shouldn't. The only reason we shouldn't is because of how poorly we're doing things here, but that's not really a reason not to do that there.
Right.
It's because
In Mars?
people, yeah. Because I've had this thought for a while too that eventually there's going to be a lot of domes on Earth. I think eventually people are going to build domes and build little microbiomes to create things, and I think it's going to be a similar thing. Once we have that technology here, just do that on Mars and you're good to go.
Mm-hmm. My perspective is that obviously Mars is the closest planet still within the habitable zone, as they call it, in our solar system, close enough to the sun for the warmth and whatnot. You know, because the light and warmth and all that are needed for life. There's ice on the planet there, so there's a way to possibly get that ice to, you know, melt or what, and possibly get an atmosphere, or use that, if not create the atmosphere, have domed atmospheres, right? So you know, the gravity is different. That's a problem, holding the atmosphere to the planet. right? So we have to create the domes, and then you've got all those issues. But you know, if you ever saw the movie Martian, that dust storm that occurred, the dust storms on Mars are not like a tornado storm. They're basically like it's the reality of dust storms on Mars is it's not like trying to get through the dust storm. Like, no, that's the one part of that movie that they really got wrong. And I know that just by watching other scientists who know the real information. Look it up on Star Talk if you want to check out a really cool show, podcast. Neil deGrasse Tyson, famed cosmologist, not cosmetology, but cosmology, right? Astrophysics, like our Sir Dr. Brian May, right? Anyway, but
not astrology, astronomy.
No, not astrology, astronomy. Yeah, the science of planets, not made up stuff. Anyway, but yeah, let's just write out, like, we can create our own, like, but like out of your dream, you could probably write a book and probably come up with a freaking cool ass movie off of your dream idea, right? I mean, think about that. You can start writing this stuff down, dude, and come up with like a science fiction novels, and you'd be like the next father of what's his name from Back to the Future. Anyway, Marty's dad.
What's
what was
like
his name?
the thing that stands out the most to me is in these dreams, whenever I get on the ship to go to the next planet or whatever, like I feel all of that stuff like in my dreams, you know what I mean? I feel like us going up and all this kind of, it's bizarre. It's such a weird feeling.
Yeah. So, dude, I would write it down, man, if you can. Even just tell yourself the story of the dream as you remember it before you forget the details, because I think dreams are amazing. Yeah. And that gets to about what's really cool about the connection that we have with, you know, our perception of our reality. I heard some scientists talk about this, and we'll kind of try to end on this kind of thing today, because we'll bring this subject back again, because this is just like it goes on, doesn't it? There's so much to go into on this. The way I heard it put was, what science gives us is perspective, because we only have a limited level of ability to sense our universe that's around us, our environment, right? And what we can see out there. And we got into this a little bit with Michael last time when, you know, I got my Aunt Julie's calling me. I'm going to send her a message. Hold on, I'll call you back.
And another thing I wanted to say about Paul Stamets real quick is he's a big collaborator. He really leans on the people around him and trusts a lot of people, and he's not an egomaniac at all. He's just a really smart guy that just
Who are you talking about?
Doing God's work.
This guy, Paul Stamets.
Could you write it down for me so I can write it down?
Yeah.
I put a link in the description, Janice.
Well,
there's a link in the description. So
I just put it in the private chat.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, after the show, if you guys want to go check out, there are 3 links in the description. I highly recommend you guys watch all of that if you can, because it will go into so much better detail than what we're blabbing about here. But that's the whole point, is to try to get your guys' interest in that stuff, to learn more. But what I wanted to say
politics,
about science,
I would vote for Paul Stamets as a politician.
Well, we could probably use more people like that in politics, but they're not going to waste their time because they know they'll get nowhere.
I gotta check him out. Thanks.
Yeah. But he has enough
part
people.
of the problem with politics right now.
But he might be able to get enough people working for him that he might be able to pull
there you go.
Because he already, you know, he has a company of 125 people, which is not a lot, but it's enough, you know, of just researchers. That's a lot, you know. And like I said, he has the largest collection of old growth forest mushrooms in the world. And I mean, I don't want him to stop doing what he's doing. I just want another Paul Stamets. Let's make a clone of him or something, you know.
There you go. Well, that's exactly what you got to do. I think you're really right about that. That's another thing we can get into, because it's not music related. But let me finish my thought on this thing about science. So I heard it posed very well by someone, a scientist, who said that what science gives us is perspective. What perspective is a different way to perceive our environment, or what we experience in the world. So like the first time you ever experience fire, you know, you thought, oh, it's hot. Ouch. That's no good. It's bad. But then you're like, wait a minute. different perspective is I can use this thing called fire perhaps to do things for me. Now, can you imagine all the different ways humanity has found a way to use combusting, fuel of some kind, whether it's a piece of wood on fire or whether it's oil or whether it's whatever, nuclear fission that's occurring, that's heat, you know, all the different ways we've found a way to use that particular thing, fire or heat, right? And use it to or for whatever purposes. I mean, all of those different uses are, we have to have a perspective on how we can use that. And first we have to perceive what that thing is. And how do you perceive something? Well, you have to be able to sense it. And like what we got into with Michael last time when he was on the show, and we had a disagreement about what knowledge and what do we really know. The point is that science, what's wonderful about science is that we can find ways and create tools that help us perceive things, so we can then have a different perspective on our reality, and therefore describe our reality and perhaps find tools within that reality for our benefit. And that's what we've done in the world as humankind.
The one that keeps sticking out in my mind while you're talking about this is the invention of the atomic bomb. As destructive as and terrible as it was, but there's nothing before, nothing after that was like it. And you talk about sensing it. That's as sensory as it gets when it comes to an explosion like that coming from a technology that, if you would have told people about that, they would have thought you're crazy. Like, you can make a bomb from that? Like, are you kidding me? Like,
and right now
it doesn't really make sense, but now it's like it totally changed our world.
And just like a mile and a half from me, they're doing fusion. Nuclear, what would you call it? They're basically, using lasers to heat up two, I forget exactly what the elements are, to combine. And the energy off of that combination of those two elements is creating more energy than what's put into it. What is that called? That's called free energy, because normally you're not supposed to have that. You're supposed to have energy in, energy out is equal. Here, it's energy in is you're getting a higher energy output. So thereby you're creating free energy. So it's not free like it doesn't cost anything, but it's free in the sense that you're getting more of something than what you put in. And that's it, man. That's right there. We're 4 away from fusion, right? And cleaner by far. There's still some, radioactive issues, but nothing like the rest, right? Way cleaner.
Like Chuck Norberg fusion.
So basically, if we have the ability to create energy off of fusion, then terraforming Mars is a no-brainer. It's going to happen. The problem is always going to be distance and time, because we're talking about space and time, space-time. We're talking about distances that are far apart, and Mars is close, so that makes a difference.
How long before we get the first tractor on Mars and get going? Let's go.
Right. Well, we already have rovers on there, right? We got the little, what's it called? Oh God, what's that rover called? My favorite, the one that's got the spectroscopy,
Get me up there with the bulldozer. I'll start going. Let's do it.
I think it's called, God, what is it called? Creation or whatever. God, I got to look this up. It's some simple word like that. What are the rovers on Mars?
Like, what are they called?
Yeah, there are names of them. There's different ones. There's one.
I just thought it was Mars rover.
Mars Reconnaissance. There's the Orbiter. There's a Mars Helicopter. There's the Sojourner. Opportunity, Spirit, Curiosity, Perseverance. I think it's Curiosity is the one I'm thinking of, but that's already just been since 2012. Yeah, I remember studying about that, and when I was taking psychology. So then there's Curiosity is the one that's and there's Perseverance that landed and it's been there since the 2021 that is. And then there's now a 6th one that's done by Science National Space Administration called the Zhurong. So really, really cool stuff. And they're studying everything about the biosphere there, and autotrophic, chemotrophic, or chemolitho-autotrophic microorganisms. God, this is science. What I love about astronomy, and like what Neil deGrasse Tyson always makes a joke about the difference between their science and others, is they use easier words. Like, what do we call it when we have something like, we don't understand what this energy is, but we know it's made of, it's some kind of matter. We call it dark matter because we don't know what it is. It's like in the dark to us. So dark matter. What do we call the hole that's sucking in all light? a black hole, because it's like, so it's funny how he like makes fun of like how
I think I read
other
something
people
the other
use all
day
these
that they
crazy
found out that
words.
dark matter's not a thing.
No, 90% of
Oh,
the
here we go. This
universe
is what
is,
the photo was about. That
yeah.
part of the controversy, right?
We can go
The,
into
the
this
dark,
another time, you
the
guys, but
black hole.
I was just watching Star Talk and Neil deGrasse Tyson and some other scientists talking, and one of the things they were talking about is that 90% of our universe, as we have been able to discern, 90% of the matter that is out there, according to the math and how everything has got to work for there to be everything the way it is, 90% of it we don't know, we can't see it. So we don't have tools yet to measure it, but we know it is there because it has to be for
I wouldn't
everything to be
necessarily
working
put
the
that
way it
out as
is.
fact, because I did hear something the other day that that's not true.
It's I'm not
That
saying
was
that it's fact. I'm just saying that what these scientists were saying is that 90% of the universe as we know it, the matter, we can't perceive it yet. We know it's there, but we don't have ways to measure it outside of that. We know it's there. We can
I'll
measure everything
find that
else,
article
in
I
other
saw.
words. So that's what they're saying. Some people could, and there's lots of articles about all this kind of stuff. What I try to go to is when you have scientists that study this all their lives, and this is their bread and butter. When you have consensus on something, that could be groupthink. I get that, but when you have consensus on something, um, especially if they don't understand it or don't know what it is, and they're able to admit it, I appreciate that, because they're saying, hey, we believe 90% of the universe as we've been able to measure it so far, we can't measure. We have no way of seeing it or knowing what it is. We don't know what it is. That's why we call it dark matter. And then there's dark energy. It's a completely different thing, totally unrelated. So there's a lot of theories, right? Yes, yeah. There's so many interesting things going on. Yeah. One question that was asked the other day on the Star Talk show by one of their Patreons was, is
Vlad, could you make yourself a little bit louder?
me? Is that better?
Yeah,
Is
just a tiny bit.
is a black hole just pure gravity? And they were trying to talk about, is a black hole a place or a thing? And the way that Neil deGrasse Tyson described, he says, okay, a black hole is a thing. It's an actual object. In other words, it's something that moves around in space. So it's an object in space-time. All right. We know it's there. We know there's lots of them, and we know like big spiral galaxies like ours have supermassive black holes at the center. That's what's spinning the galaxy, right? Makes sense. There's some gravitational pull, just like when you look at a drain, right? What's draining the water? Well, gravity. So there's something pulling. So what gravity is a word we're using to describe that nature of something pulling to its center of its density. And these are dense materials, so it's a thing. But there are, within a black hole, there's something like called the singularity, which is something we don't know what it is really, but it's in the center of it. And then we have the like event horizon and everything in between that, and the singularity in the center. But the bottom line is those are then places within the black hole. So those are not the thing itself. The black hole is the thing, and then those are places within it, right? It was a really interesting way of describing that. But yeah, so bottom line is, we're using science, which is measuring things and trying to replicate and have proofs of how we're measuring something. And if we're able to prove it, like using tools that we create to see atomic structure, crash, atoms together to break them apart and see what other parts come out, and if there are other parts of parts, how deep does the rabbit hole go, right? But we're trying to understand the universe so we can better use it. And then they get into the talking about time. So what psychedelics and psilocybins and all that do is it opens up people's minds to a different perspective on their reality, kind of like what science does. Science is a different way. you know? And that's why a lot of scientists, believe it or not, do mushrooms and use things like psychedelics, because sometimes they have a block. Their other side of their mind, the concrete brain, blocks them,
You
you
should
know,
pull up a
from
chart.
seeing things.
You should pull up that chart that shows your mind on mushrooms versus without. Have you seen
All
that
right,
chart?
let's do that. Mind on mushrooms, and then we'll end it on that chart.
For me, I put mind on mushrooms versus normal. First
All
chart
right,
that shows up.
let me go ahead and share this to you guys. We can do this. Present screen. Yeah. All right, here we go. We can look right into this. Add to the stage. Let me go and
Yeah, that's the one I was looking at.
Yeah. Oh, okay, you got to get rid of this thing. All right, so it goes into, God, so many ads. All right, let me get rid of all the ads. Thank you for your Dove Men Care thing, but we don't need to look at all that. Anyway, all right, so we've got the Science of the Week. So this is Wired Magazine. I love this magazine. I used to read this back in the 90s a lot. Graphic of the Week. How magic mushrooms rearrange your brain. A new way of looking at the mind's activity may give insight into how psychedelic drugs produce their consciousness altering effects. So look at how much more stuff's going on and how much more our brain is connected to different parts of the brain at once.
And the
Communication between the brain networks and people.
The important thing about this
psilocybin.
graph too is if you have a connection that gets damaged, this will
Yeah.
also help with that. So if you have a damaged connection, you take
yeah.
these mushrooms and it'll help heal those connections.
Right. So a new way of looking at brain activity may give insight into how psychedelic drugs produce their consciousness-altering effects. In recent years, the focus on the brain structures and regions has given way to an emphasis on neurological networks, how cells and regions interact with consciousness shaped not by any given set of brain regions, but by their interplay, understanding the networks. However, is no easy task. See, and there's so much more to know about how the brain and everything works, right? And researchers are developing ever more sophisticated ways of characterizing them. One such approach, described in a new Proceedings of the Royal Society Interface Study, involves not simple networks, but networks of networks. Networks of networks. And this is where AI is going to help us a lot. Perhaps some aspects of consciousness arrive from these meta-networks. And to investigate the proposition, the researchers analyzed fMRI scans of 15 people, and that's a certain type of magnetic resonance. God, what does the I stand for? I forgot. Of people after being injected with psilocybin, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, and compared them to scans of their brain's activity after receiving a placebo. So you got to do the placebo thing, otherwise you don't know if it's real or not, right? Investigating psychedelia wasn't the direct purpose of the experiment, said study co-author Giovanni Petri, a mathematician at Italy's Institute for Scientific Interchange. Rather, psilocybin makes for an ideal test system. It's a surefire way of altering consciousness. In the normal brain, many things are happening. You don't know what is going on or what is responsible for that, says Petri. So you try to perturb the state of consciousness a bit and see what happens. Isn't this amazing? A representation of that is seen in the image below. Each circle depicts relationships between networks. The dots and colors correspond not to brain regions, but to especially connection-rich networks, with normal state brains at the left, so the circle on the left, versus psilocybin-influenced brains on the right. So we'll go right back up to that. See that? So there's a lot more going on there.
One thing I should say too in this, it's not just about psilocybin mushrooms, it's about mushrooms in general. There are tons of gourmet mushrooms that do not have psychedelic effects that are still extremely good for you. Mushrooms are looked at as, psilocybin is looked at as a drug, but things like turkey tail mushrooms and what's the other one? The lion's mane mushrooms are extremely good for you, really good for your biome, and they're non-psychoactive, just normal eat it mushrooms.
Very cool.
They come in pill form if you want, whatever. They're really good for you.
Interesting. So here it continues. This is a very short article, so I'll finish reading it. In mathematical terms, said Petri, normal brains have a well-ordered correlation state. There's not much cross-linking between networks. That changes after the psilocybin dose. Suddenly the networks are cross-linking like crazy, but not in random ways. New types of order emerge. So that's interesting too, because that tells you how the brain actually, allows for certain connections in a certain way that probably benefit the human that it's in, right? The brain inside the human is kind of the central nervous system and computer of the whole thing. We can speculate on the implications of such an organization, wrote the researchers, who were led by neurobiologist Paul Expert of King's College. So Paul Expert of King's College, London. That's his real name, Paul Expert. That's hilarious. One possible byproduct of this greater communication across the whole brain is the phenomenon of synesthesia, right? We've all heard about that whole synesthesia with color and whatnot going on, right? Objects, and mostly color, sound. The experience common during psychedelic experiences of sensory mix-up, tasting colors, feeling sounds, seeing smells, and so on. So the mix-up of our senses, right? Petrie notes that the network depiction above is still a simplified abstraction with the analysis mapped on a circular, two-dimensional scaffold. A truer way of visualizing it, he said, would be in 3 dimensions with connections between networks forming a sponge-like topography, right? That level of interpretation is still beyond the researcher's mathematical ken. This is why I was saying this is where AI is going to help us a lot. Petrie says they hope to find or refine, their methods in future research and to track network fluctuations over longer periods of time with different drugs. The big question in neuroscience is where consciousness comes from. That's the big question. Who are we? Where did we come from? Who am I? Why am I here? Where can we go? What's it all about? These are the big questions, right? For now, he said, we don't know. But this is great, man, because this is exactly what, I'm bringing, why I'm doing the show. And what I'm trying to bring to you all is a little perspective, and broaden your perceptions of your reality. Because when we do that, we find ourselves closer to each other. We're going to connect with each other more, don't you think? And that's what I think music does, and why we didn't even get into the whole part about how music in the therapy sessions with psilocybins is such a big part of it. Maybe we'll have to do part 3 on psilocybins alone on this psychedelic journey here into the mind and in the universe, right? What do you guys think?
I was just trying to look up a study that I couldn't find. I was trying to look up a study on this mushroom. There's a mushroom that's cultivated in Japan, and everybody in the city that worked at this mushroom factory and the families where all the mushrooms came home to and all that kind of stuff, they had like a 25 or maybe like a 50. I can't remember. I wish I would have found the article, but it's an extremely low cancer rate in their society, to the point where it caused the government to do research, because they're like, what's going on? Your guys' cancer rate is so much lower than the rest of the population that it needs to be investigated.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you find that study, send it to me.
Yeah, I'll try to find it.
Yeah.
It was a specific type of mushroom. I tried to look up the type of mushroom and I can't find it. It's not shiitake mushrooms. It's not enoki mushrooms. I'll have to find it.
Special Japanese mushrooms. There's maitake. There's dynasty mushrooms. Wood-ear mushrooms. Enoki mushrooms.
And maybe it's enoki. I think it was enoki mushrooms.
Does it look like this?
I think it was the enoki mushrooms. Because it does say that they have anti-cancer properties, but I haven't found that exact article though. But the medicines are being grown for us, people. That's the point. Earth is taking care of us. We just have to pay attention.
Excuse me, I didn't hit the button. Yeah, right. Raoki. It could be Raoki. Anyway,
could be. I can't remember.
There's so much food out there that we don't have in our regular diet that we're not aware of, that we're all learning about, because we're such a global world now, and we're able to, one of the things I was reading about yesterday was about how we're completely, forgetting about how much stuff there is in the ocean that we can eat that is, so good for us.
Yeah,
Just
I just hope
kelp,
we don't
just kelp.
overfish, and that's a concern of
Well, that's
mine.
the
But
point, is that there are a lot of people that are doing farming of things in the ocean that are really healthy for the ocean, that can help the fish too, like kelp
yeah,
farm and things like
hmm
that. So there's so much that's going on. There's so much positivity, and so many people that are trying, the futurist type people are finding a way to create a positive future. And we have so much dystopian perceptions on the future.
I just don't
And there
know
are so many people,
why don't
yeah.
we use rivers and stuff like that as an energy source? Why don't we use the ocean as an energy source? It's the biggest body of water we have.
Oh, there's definitely, I remember decades ago them talking about using wave technology as a way of, creating energy, but it's not as efficient. That's part of the thing, is efficiency is the thing. And
Yeah.
that's why right now the hottest thing is fusion, because we're
Oh
talking
yeah. I
about
mean,
efficiency,
but it
once
could.
we
I
are
mean, that
able to
it should have been the
build it
case
up,
for 20 years now. They should have been
you know.
focusing on that
But I mean, in
technology.
California, what has the
Payoff's going to be
governor
huge.
been? I mean, what have they been doing for green technology in California for last last decade or more?
Solar panels.
Everything, green technology, from wind farms to, putting out solar panels on everyone's house that wants to get on the program, to promoting, more greener energy cars and things like that. Because the idea is, we've got deserts in California. Have you ever driven by that tower that's got the solar, array shining at the tower, heating up the water? And basically, we're still not using the most modern form of, technology like fusion that we're looking at, but we're still just heating up water to create steam, to create pressure, to run a generator, to create electricity. That still works. But birds are falling out of the sky nearby that tower because the heat's cooking them. And like moth to the flame, sometimes they're going there, and then there's some people complaining about they're killing birds. The thing is, there's always going to be some negative to something. The whole thing about fusion, the one negative thing that it has, obviously, is that there is some still radioactive material left over, but minuscule in comparison to the problems with dealing with, like,
Yeah, and I've seen how they
nuclear
dispose
power.
of it. It's not like this
Yeah.
glowing green bar or something like that, or like
And
this
believe it or not,
radioactive material.
yeah,
It's
it's not like The Simpsons, right?
yeah, it's like this. It's just a little piece of metal like that.
Hey, you
It's a
might be
little,
able to use that radioactive substance to use for some other thing. They might be able to fuel something else with that, or they might be able to use that to feed something that eats it. There are things that eat radioactivity.
I mean, we could just
believe
dump
it
it
or
on
not.
Pluto. I don't care.
Things that do
Well,
what?
but we probably wouldn't need to. That's the whole point. There might be ways to
Need-
use it right here on the planet that benefit everybody in the planet, rather than trying to rocket it out into space and it could possibly blow up in the sky because if something goes wrong with the rocket.
Gargut says the Simpsons with the three-eyed fish. One thing I was thinking is the aliens, in the big pods thing with the tentacles hanging out.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, Boomster Black. That's why we got to find a way to terraform other planets and get off this planet, because we're going to overpopulate it at some point. There's only so many resources.
And there's
that we can
also
use
that
that are on the
144,000 people theory.
Yeah, and the thing is that I think once we're able to conquer space, okay,
Yeah, Martian
we'll be
Murray's
able
got
to
the
use.
idea.
There's so much material out there in our solar system alone. There's so much material that we can use. I mean, where did all the water come from on this planet? It didn't come from this planet. It came to this planet. It's all out there, man. There's giant chunks of ice out there just waiting to be melted, and that's H2O, which is hydrogen and oxygen, and two
What's up,
big,
Alex?
big things. Hey, Alex, we're gonna get together for your birthday, right?
Yeah, man, that'd be fun.
It's gonna be awesome. What's up, dude? All right, we gotta end it, man. I'm running late, but I started late, so I get that.
Cool.
My aunt asked me to pick up some eggs and stuff for when I get there. I'm going over to visit my cousin Joe and visit my aunt Julia. And my cousin Joe's here from Europe, who bought a house in Budapest. Woo! Good for him, dude. Right on.
Cool.
Okay, then.
I'm really excited about that. My sweetie's
Have
like,
fun.
well, where's our house? I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm working on it, Trying to get back into that game, but it might not happen in California. Might have to find it somewhere else. But I'm still trying to make the dream happen right here in California. So we'll see. Yeah, but right on, man. I know you're doing your homework on that. We'll talk. we'll chat and we'll figure out a way to make that happen. But I'm thinking Saturday is going to be the best for me and family and other friends that we can get to join in on, make it a big party. I think for sure what's cool about Saturday is that rush hour and traffic on a Friday, getting in and out of the city is a freaking nightmare. So you don't want to. We'll find something else to do on a Friday night there. Maybe go to the saloon or go check out some other show or something like you were talking about.
Yeah, I didn't tell you on the way home the other day, but they were shutting down the freeways. The cops were doing the whole weaving thing.
Oh no! So when did you get home? How long did it take
like
you?
9.
Oh my God! You should have stayed around for a while.
And I left at like 6:45.
Oh God, it's nuts, right? Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah, we should all come to Texas. I'd love to go to Texas, dude. I'd love to go to Texas. It'd be
I got a guy wanting me to go to Texas.
I've never been. I would
Vargas is
love to
ready.
go to Texas.
Yeah.
Vargas, where are you?
Wanted to go to Austin.
This guy I used to work with, he's kind of like, I'm friends with him on Facebook now still. But where are you near Houston?
Where are you at?
I feel like I'd fit in with this guitar.
Dude, you know who had that guitar in his background that I was watching this show yesterday talking about the missile launches from
San Antonio? Is that near Houston?
Israelis. One of my favorite, it's not political, but one of my favorite guys who gives a lot of information about what's going on around the world on the military side of things, has a really great show. And I learned about him through Rick Beato's show, and his name's Ward Carroll, and he was a Top Gun Rio, the guy who sits in the back in front of the pilot, behind the pilot. And he served in the Iraq theater of the wars, and has a really interesting perspective on where we're at when it comes to our military and what's going on in the various different military actions going on in the world. And he takes a non-political kind of perspective on things, and he's a music buck. He's got guitars behind him, Beatles stuff. He's a big time Beatles fan, another rock fan. He's got a Marshall, half stack or 2x12, one of those, slant, skinny 2x12. That's
like 5, right? 5 hours in regular time.
Yeah.
Martian, don't tempt me, man. That sounds too good to pass up.
Yeah, check this guy's channel out, you guys, if you have never heard of
Taco tour? I've never been on a taco tour. That sounds like a blast.
Taco tour?
Yeah, Martians have been going on a taco tour in San Antonio.
Dude, I'd love to go to San Antonio.
New
York City. I love that joke. That what was that salsa thing? New York City. That's made in New York City. Got to get it from Texas, man. Texas. Yeah, gotta check it out. Yeah, but check this guy out, Ward Carroll, if you want to. I wanted to be a pilot when I was like a teenager. So before even the Top Gun thing came out, I wanted to be flying planes and jets and stuff because I like going fast. Yeah, but the taco tour, man, that sounds great. All right, man. Well, anyway, that's the show for today, you guys. Okay. Went long.
I think we're going to leave it at that point.
Went all over the place off the subject, but we were mostly on topic about the psilocybins, right? And how it kind of connects us and maybe opens up our perception of reality by giving us a different perspective on reality through a journey inward or outward. I don't know. It's quite a journey either way. I'm not saying go out and do mushrooms. I'm just saying let's learn about these things and decriminalize these things. If there's anything I want to, really push is decriminalizing these things, because I don't think criminalizing them helps society. I think it's created these like wars that don't solve problems. They just create more problems for people that like to make machines of war rich. And that's how I'm going to end it.
What's the howlers?
That's how I'm going to end it, dang it.
I want to find out what the house thing is first. H-A-L-U-S.
I don't want our lifespan here as human beings on the planet to end this way. I want it to end in a happy, nice way, right? What's a good way? Rock on, everybody. Have a great weekend. See you guys next week on the Gear and Demo show, where I'll put the Freak Out pedal back together. Until then, check out all the other people's shows. Check out Janice's
Dale at the end.
Yeah, Dale always at the end. You rock, dude. Intersecting discussion. Yeah. Interesting. That is intersecting. That's how I can read with these glasses. I'm like having to go like this to read, because if I'm like this, it's blurry. Like this, I can see. They're not bifocals. They're, what do they call these things? Progressives. Love these things. All right. Until next time, you guys. Once again, be good or be good.